you got to cut here. You got to get the expenses under control. And I don't think, have the management fortitude to do it, to make the cuts that are necessary. 80% increase in product development spending in the span of 1 year. How do you do that? They were valued at roughly 13x revenue to get a $34 billion valuation. Earlier this year in 2020, when Airbnb was in trouble because of COVID, they actually sold $1 billion worth of equity at an $18 billion valuation. Next topic here is Airbnb expense management. So 2015, cost of revenue. Cost of revenue, we've seen that. It grows. It makes sense how that grows. Next one, operations and support. Okay, that grows linearly also. Product development. $580 million 2018 to $980 million in 2019. Much larger jump. $400 million, right? We covered that in the last show. Sales and marketing, 1.6 over $500 million jump. Let's put some context to these years. In 2017, Airbnb was valued at $34 billion. They raised like $4 billion. They had a post-valuation, roughly $34 billion valuation. So that was in 2017, they did that round. So they were able to show, hey, look at our growth. We're gonna net out around $2.5-ish billion in revenue. We had 1.6-ish in the year prior. And look, we're projecting really strongly to have, call it 40% year over year growth into 2018. That's very strong growth. And that was before all of this funny business with crazy product development, crazy sales and marketing additions. They were valued at roughly 13x revenue to get a $34 billion valuation. Back in 2015, they were around an $18 billion valuation, which is where, if you remember, earlier this year in 2020, when Airbnb was in trouble because of COVID, they actually sold $1 billion worth of equity at an $18 billion valuation to these investors, and they were giving them debt and equity. Silver Lake, 6th Street, and some others. So they were doing a little less than $1 billion in revenue, and it was maybe 80% growth from 2015 to 2016 in top line revenue. So at roughly 80% projected, say, year over year growth, they are able to command roughly a 20x revenue multiple. Okay. Now you look at 2020, let's say they're going to be around $3-ish billion in revenue. So now this is crude back of the napkin math. Call it a 6x revenue multiple. 2017 with very strong growth, but growth coming down. They're at 13. So it went from, call it 20 to 13 to now 6 or 7, right? From 2015 to 2017 to 2020. And these platform stocks are all about growth. Now, the interesting thing to me is that they did go and blow this $900 million on product development and sales and marketing. The other thing, the crazy thing with that is when you look at 2019, product development spend, basically $700 million against 2020 product development spend, it's basically the same thing. Brian and management, it doesn't look like they really cut much from the product development team, right? Because this number would go down in 2020 if they did. They have their restructuring line item farther down here. So, where you give people severance packages and all that kind of stuff. So it actually doesn't look like they really cut product development, even though they had almost a 100% increase, maybe call it 80% increase in product development spending in the span of 1 year. How do you do that? What they said is in sales and marketing, they cut off all their ads, and that was how they, drastically cut down on the sales and marketing expense. And you can see the difference here, right? At this same time in 2019, they were spending almost $1.2 billion in sales and marketing. And now this year, they're at like $550 million. The large majority of that they explain in these numbers is from ad spend and competing against Google and all these kinds of things. Now, the kind of scary thing to me is they didn't see the bump that I would have expected for that kind of spend from 2018 to 2019. You can see the numbers here. And again, they haven't cut deep cuts into product development. They're still going to have massive losses for this year. I would argue their product development department and operations and support. I mean, they had a small cut in operations and support, yet they have much less throughput. You got to cut here. You got to get the expenses under control. And I don't think, have the management fortitude to do it, to make the cuts that are necessary. A. B. Their pricing is not competitive. They break out here in one of these things. I don't know, there's a million pages in these things. They break out that they're getting roughly 15 cents on the dollar from some mixture of, from the host and the guest. They're getting roughly 15 cents on the dollar for every booking. That model is not competitive in long-term stays, which this S1 puts a huge emphasis on. So, I'm not seeing the bang for the buck on the ability to juice top-line revenue with crazy ad spending. They've now taken it away. We still don't. Q3 has always historically, if you look through the past number of years on Airbnb, they've had positive EBITDA in Q3, going back many years. But that's just for some reason and they don't really do a good job explaining why. But Q3 they've always been able to have positive EBITDA, and so now makes the most sense for them to file. I mean, if they were going to go public, regardless of what year they're going to go public, they'd be going public after they release Q3 because it shows positive EBITDA. For whatever reason, that's how their business works. Seasonality, something in there, but they get positive EBITDA in Q3. I don't know the ins and outs of the business, but this one, in my ranking of these three companies, from Wish, Airbnb to Roblox is at the top. Airbnb is somewhere in the middle. Not saying this is a bad company. I'm just saying with better management, it could be a great company. And Wish is at the bottom. I really don't like that company. The more and more I've now dug into it. Hi, this is Alex from Winner Take All. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the content. Feel free to leave a comment, ask us questions, and definitely make sure to join us on our next live stream.